Hi, this is Schizophrenia Matters, and today I'd like to talk about schizophrenia and mania. Mania is something that I've dealt with my entire life. This feeling of hyperactivity. I would get periods of insomnia. I would have feelings of like I was indestructible or I was invincible. I would have feelings that I was like Superman, quality, or Batman or whatever. I thought that I had qualities of superheroes, and that would lead into my psychosis. But I would have these periods of mania where I would be up for several days, and be bound and kind of have that bouncing off the walls tendency, but in a very extreme way. It wasn't like it's not like in ADD or ADHD. It was more of like I was up and causing disruption. I was up and causing some mayhem. It wasn't that I was having trouble with task completion, even though that I kind of was or wasn't. Sometimes I wouldn't have any trouble with task completion. I would just be doing things in a manic state, and I would just be able to do them. In work, and sometimes it would be beneficial for me to be in a manic state, because I would just be acting, and I would be able to get things done quickly, and I could after a period of time channel these types of manic states, and because I learned to, because I had to work. I think that's what a lot of my masking of my symptoms became, was, can I still work and maintain my life with even still having these symptoms? And to the point now where I cannot, it's without medication, and even still with medication, I've yet to really maintain my life, other than making these videos. And really when it comes down to it, I'm in more of like solitary confinement, only in an open world open world solitary confinement. There's people all around me, but none are really close. So I have this this type of way because of my psychosis, right? Because I included people in my delusions, and I don't want to include them in my delusions anymore. And so I just rather have people be themselves, and me be myself. And I have this degree of separation these days, but that becomes problematic because no one can really monitor my moods, right? I don't have anybody that's really close to me that can really monitor what I'm going through, which is kind of scary, right? Because sometimes, like, I'll be in a manic state or depressive state, I don't even know that I'm in one of these states, and I make actions and that have consequences far reaching while I'm in these states. And so I really have to make sure I have a good quality of being, that I'm very centered. Like, I know it sounds like my voice is kind of monotone right now, but that's because I'm on medication. So I mean, I really am more expressive. I'm a little bit more jittery. I'm a little bit more all over the place. But right now my emotions are a little bit more deadened, and I'm having a little bit more poverty of speech, a little bit more poverty of expression, since my last psychotic episode. So I'm definitely in a residual phase of schizophrenia currently. So I am subject to mood mood disruptions. So just trying to go through those and be in a place where I'm comfortable is paramount. You know, I end my videos with, I hope you find some comfort, because I think that is what I am striving for, is some measure of appropriate comfort, you know, in my day-to-day life. I think, you know, for me, that's sort of like a strength, is to have, you know, is to have comfort, is to be comfortable in any type of situation, you know. And so that's what I mean by comfort. And I don't mean by like a false comfort. I mean like a true comfort. You know, things that where you're truly that I'm truly comforted by, and I hope that you're truly comforted as well. But you know, in these manic states, you know, they really are devastating. They're devastating. You know, I've burned so many bridges, and burned so many, you know, so I've left so many jobs, and, you know, lashed out in anger, and you know, been in places where, you know, like I couldn't control my mood, and and been psychotic, and, you know, I'm yelling at the top of my lungs at people and places, and you know, I just, you know, being in public is impossible, you know, because, you know, I'll get arrested, you know. Like, I've been walking down the street just yelling on my telephone to nobody, literally just, you know, just having, you know, just, I needed to yell, so I was just on my telephone, and I was just walking down the street just yelling, you know, as a prop, using my cell phone as a prop. You know, like I have been in places where, you know, like I've tried to maintain some type of cover, but now I'm in a place where I have no cover. Like I'm out of facade, for my schizophrenia and my manic depression, or my bipolar. I like manic depression better. I mean, that's just, you know, as far as insignias go. I mean, I just, you know, it just makes sense. You know, it's just, you know, you have these extreme, you know, depressive episodes, and these extreme manic episodes that both can lead to psychosis, right? And, you know, and both have, you know, like mine, what separates me from being, you know, also bipolar is the length of time that I go through these, you know, these active phases. I mean, you know, I'm talking about 5-6 months, you know what I mean? Like, I'll have nightly, you know, breaks from reality. But what I'm talking about is like a 5-6 month stint where you don't know what time it is, and that's a difference, you know. That's a big difference. You know, 2 weeks, if they were only lasting for about 2 weeks, then you know, then manic depression, the conversation would still be on the table. But this is it. My symptoms go on for are continuous and chronic. It makes life unmanageable, you know, and I'm in recovery for it. But I mean, the manic states that I go in, you know, like I could, you know, I could rip apart my apartment, you know, like, you know, just throw everything apart, you know, pull all the clothes out of my for no reason, you know. And then, you know, my volition takes over, and then I don't want to put it all back, you know. Like, you know, or I'll use like all of my dishes to make, you know, you know, this is just minor things, you know. So I use like all of my dishes, and, you know, they just stack up, you know, and I use, you know, all my dishes in a real manic way, you know, and then they stack up, you know, and I don't take care of them. You know, this make, you know, it looks like ADD or ADHD or anything like that, you know, these manic symptoms, but they're really not. You know, they go much deeper than just a mania. You know, if you have mania, and this type of uh, uh, directed delusions or directed hallucinations that, you know, that someone's telling, you know, this usually goes with people that are religious. You know, they have you know, religious, you know, commands from God telling them to do stuff, you know, and they're specifically channeled, and they go into these manic states, and they feel like because they have the will of God behind them, they can accomplish, they have superpowers, you know. um, I uh, I have the science option of that. I fixed a quantum computer, and this is what, you know, this is it allowed me to tap into the world's thoughts, you know. And I was like Professor X, you know. I could read people's thoughts, and I could project out, and I could, you know, control the world, you know, for real. I mean, that's the type of 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 manic, um, delusional hallucinations that are really typical of mental illness and psychosis. Um, and so I just wanted to kind of outline these, and, you know, show that, you know, that if you have schizophrenia, you can still have other things. You know what I mean? You can still have these mood disorders. You can still have ADHD. Still have schizophrenia. It's not one or the other. You know, like you can have multiple things going on, and they are very, you know, very traumatizing when you go through them, and you go through psychosis. Um, and anything that can lead you into psychosis, you know, is mental illness. But anyway, I do hope you find some comfort today. And if you are suffering from mania or schizophrenia or any other mental illness, or anything really in your life, I hope you find comfort. And have a good day.